Gray was fortunate enough to make an impression on T.S. Eliot after meeting him at Harvard University during his 2 undergraduate years.
I first met Mr. Eliot as an undergraduate student at Harvard University when he came there as a guest lecturer. While he stayed at my dormitory, Eliot House, he asked me to call on him the next time I was in London.
Some years later, Gray decided his ultimate dream was to teach, so he attended Louisiana State University and the University of Exeter for graduate school to receive his Master's of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy degrees. He wrote both his master's thesis and Ph.D. dissertation on T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. While working at Exeter on his Ph.D. dissertation called The Symbolical Continuity in the Poems of T.S. Eliot, he took up Eliot's offer and contacted him. Gray was able to interview Eliot in London, who also made comments, additions, and corrections on Gray's dissertation. These meetings ultimately created a friendship and a long correspondence between the two.
I got to know Mr. Eliot rather well, mostly in his office there at Faber and Faber on Russell Square in London. When I knew him, it was late in his life. It was in the late 1950s. He had a deep laugh. He suffered from some bronchial condition. He was always humped over like a question mark. I knew him before and after he married the second Mrs. Eliot. He seemed much more content, much happier after his second marriage. He would see anyone who would write a week ahead on Wednesday afternoons after lunch. You had 30 minutes. If your meeting was at 3, you were ushered in at 3, and at 3:30 sharp the secretary came, and that was the end. On the mantel in his office he kept 3 photographs, one of his wife, one of Virginia Woolf, and one of Groucho Marx. When I was writing my doctor's dissertation, he was very helpful and read over parts of it and commented on it. Mr. Eliot never ever under any circumstances discussed his own works directly, but he would discuss openly the works of others. In formal conversation, he would ask me questions about America, about the students' reaction to his work. He said he knew they bought his work because he got the royalties, but that didn't necessarily mean that they read his work. He had a very modest manner, rather unusual, very correct, very proper, very exact, and very punctual. He always thought about a question before he would answer it, and he would always give you a concise, very precise answer. I think these 2 qualities, conciseness and precision, tend to characterize him. Mr. Eliot always impressed me as being a very kind and modest person. Through Mr. Eliot and his kindness, I met a number of other writers and interesting people in London, such as Edward Morgan Forster, William Somerset Maugham, and Agnes Wilson. In addition, before teaching at Randolph-Macon College, I taught at a boys' prep school in London, thanks to Mr. Eliot, who helped me get the job. The last time I saw him, he was in his office. I asked him whether he considered himself to be an American or English poet, to which he answered, American.